Hi, everyone. A 59-year-old widow stood in her cozy living room waiting for a package to arrive. She had been living alone for the past few years since her husband's passing, and the loneliness had become a part of her routine. The days blurred into each other, filled with occasional chats with neighbors and weekly visits from her grown-up children. But there was an emptiness in her heart. Her life had taken on a monotonous rhythm, and it seemed that the spark of excitement had long faded away. That is, until an unexpected encounter changed everything. Martha had recently started ordering things online more frequently. Books, household supplies, and sometimes things she didn't even need, just to feel the brief thrill of someone knocking on her door. She never thought much of it, but today when the doorbell rang, something felt different. She walked towards the door with her usual calm demeanor, expecting the typical exchange with the delivery person, and opened it. To her surprise, standing in front of her was not the usual middle-aged delivery man she had come to expect, but a young man, perhaps in his early 20s. He was tall with a lean build, and his boyish features were highlighted by a warm smile that seemed to brighten the world around him. His dark hair was slightly tow-sled, and there was an undeniable charm in his casual yet confident demeanor. Martha was taken aback for a moment, feeling an unfamiliar flutter in her chest. "Delivery for Martha," he said, his voice smooth yet casual, holding out the package. His eyes met hers, and for a brief second, time seemed to slow down. There was something in the way he looked at her, a mixture of curiosity and kindness that she hadn't experienced in years. She quickly regained her composure, forcing a polite smile. "Yes, that's me." "Thank you," she replied, reaching out to take the package. But as their hands briefly touched, a strange sensation rushed through her body, warmth, anticipation, and a nervousness she hadn't felt since she was much younger. She couldn't quite place it, but there was something magnetic about him. "Need any help with that?" he asked, noticing her struggling slightly with the heavy box. Without waiting for her to respond, he stepped forward, gently taking the package from her hands. Martha's heart raced, unsure of what to make of this sudden act of kindness. She had always been independent, but in that moment, she didn't mind letting him help. "Oh, thank you," she said, a little flustered. "You're very kind." "No problem at all," he replied, walking inside her home without hesitation and placing the package on the table. "I'm Jake, by the way." Martha smiled, still feeling the aftershocks of their brief touch. "Nice to meet you, Jake. I appreciate your help." He stood there for a moment, as if debating whether to leave or stay. There was an awkward silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. In fact, Martha found herself wanting him to stay longer. She couldn't remember the last time she had felt so alive, so aware of another person's presence. Something about him stirred feelings inside her she thought had long been buried. "Is there anything else I can do for you?" Jake asked, his tone slightly teasing though respectful. Martha felt a blush rise to her cheeks, something that hadn't happened in years. She laughed it off, trying to maintain her usual composed demeanor. "No, I think I've taken enough of your time," she said, though deep down she didn't want him to leave. Jake smiled again, but this time there was a glint in his eyes, a subtle hint of something more. "Well, if you ever need anything, you know where to find me. I do deliveries in this area almost every day." And with that, he was gone, leaving Martha standing in the middle of her living room, package forgotten on the table. Her mind raced with thoughts she wasn't used to having, her heart pounding in a way that made her feel decades younger. She shook her head, trying to push away the strange feelings that had surfaced. "He's just a boy," she muttered to herself, trying to dismiss the encounter as nothing more than a friendly gesture. But over the next few days, Martha found herself thinking about Jake more than she should. Every time the doorbell rang, her heart skipped a beat, hoping it would be him. She began to anticipate his deliveries. This ordering thing she didn't need just to see him again. And every time he appeared at her door, that familiar flutter in her chest returned. One afternoon, about a week after their first meeting, Jake delivered another package. This time, however, he lingered longer than usual, making small talk. Martha, who had always been reserved, found herself opening up to him in ways she hadn't with anyone in years. They talked about everything: life, love, dreams, and the passage of time. Jake was surprisingly mature for his age, and Martha couldn't help but feel drawn to him. As the weeks went by, their interactions became more frequent and more intimate. Jake began to visit her even when he didn't have a delivery, stopping by just to say hello or check in on her. Their conversations grew deeper, and Martha found herself looking forward to his visits more than anything else. She couldn't deny the connection they shared, even though she knew how unconventional it was. One day, Jake showed up at her door, but this time he didn't have a package in hand. "I've been thinking about you," he said, his voice low and sincere. Martha's heart skipped a beat. "Why?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jake stepped closer, his eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that made her knees weak. "I don't know how to explain it," he admitted, "but there's something about you. You're different from anyone I've ever met." Martha's breath caught in her throat. She had spent so many years feeling invisible, thinking that her time for romance and excitement had passed. But here was this young man, looking at her as though she was the most captivating person in the world. She didn't know what to say, but before she could respond, Jake closed the distance between them. His lips brushed against hers, hesitant at first, as if testing the waters. Martha froze for a moment, her mind racing with thoughts of how wrong this was, how impossible it seemed. But then, something inside her snapped, and she found herself leaning into the kiss, her body responding in ways she hadn't felt in years. The kiss deepened, and for the first time in a long time, Martha allowed herself to be swept away by the moment. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathless. Jake looked at her with a mixture of desire and uncertainty, as if waiting for her to say something. "This is crazy," Martha whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. Jake nodded, but his gaze never left hers. "Maybe it is," he said softly, "but it feels right." Martha's heart ached with conflicting emotions. She knew there were a million reasons why this couldn't work, why it shouldn't work. The age difference, the societal expectations, her own fears of being judged. But in that moment, none of it seemed to matter. For the first time in years, she felt alive, desired, and important. They spent the rest of the afternoon together, talking and laughing like old friends. The connection between them was undeniable, and though Martha still had reservations, she couldn't deny the way Jake made her feel. There was a passion in him that reignited something inside her, something she thought she had lost forever. As their relationship blossomed in secret, Martha found herself torn between the life she had always known and the new possibilities that Jake represented. He made her feel young again, alive in ways she hadn't been in decades. But at the same time, she couldn't shake the fear of what others would think, the judgment she might face if anyone found out about their unconventional romance. Yet, despite her fears, Martha continued to see Jake. Their love grew stronger with each passing day. And though they faced challenges, both internal and external, they couldn't deny the connection they shared. It was as if fate had brought them together at a time when they both needed each other the most. In the end, Martha realized that life was too short to worry about what others thought. She had spent so many years living for others, putting her own happiness on hold. But now she had found someone who saw her for who she truly was, who loved her despite the age difference and the complications that came with it. And so Martha made a choice to follow her heart, to embrace the unexpected love she had found with Jake. It wasn't easy, and there were times when she doubted herself. But in the end, she knew that what they had was real. Their love story was one of passion, surprise, and the breaking of societal norms. It was a reminder that love knows no boundaries, no age limits, and no rules. It was a story that would remain with Martha forever. a story of a 59-year-old woman who found herself surprised by a young delivery boy, and in doing so, rediscovered the joy and excitement of life and love. Martha's journey wasn't just about finding love with someone younger. It was about reclaiming her own sense of worth and realizing that happiness could come from the most unexpected places. And as she looked into Jake's eyes, she knew that this was just the beginning of their story, a story that was far from over. If you've been captivated by this story and want to hear more surprising and heartwarming tales, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel.